Hey guys, welcome to this Source Gaming Discussion. I am your host, Epic Martin 7, and today I am joined by the one and only KawlunDram.
Yeah, it's me, KawlunDram, coming at you with a new name every single time.
Today we're going to talk about Nintendo's reluctance to support its legacy content on the Nintendo Switch. The reason why we're really picking up this topic is because of the recent controversy in regards to a bunch of whereas sites shutting down. First of all, we don't support piracy or anything like that. We just want to make it clear. However, it's kind of interesting considering Nintendo's not supporting the Switch at all with their legacy consoles besides NES games. So that's pretty much it. So unless you like NES stuff, you're kind of out in the dark here for the Nintendo Switch. And I know, Colin, I've heard you had some very hard-hitting opinions about this topic. So first of all, I want to start with you. Well, what do you think about what Nintendo is doing with the Switch and how they're going about these ROM sites? Because there's a lot of speculation that Nintendo is the one behind these ROM site takedowns and in preparation for their Nintendo Switch online launch. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts about the subject.
Well, I mean, in general, Nintendo's really cracking down on piracy a whole hell of a lot the last couple of weeks. It's not just ROM sites, because they recently updated the 3DS's, I was about to say DRM, but that wouldn't be true in the
Well,
slightest.
technically what they did was they backported some of the Switch security to the Nintendo 3DS, where any title you downloaded directly from their servers onto the 3DS would immediately get you banned. The only thing that's kind of loophole-ish is installing titles from the SD card. So there's still that. There's still that method. However, downloading titles from their servers is now impossible, essentially.
Well, it's actually kind of interesting about that, to go on to a little side tangent here. That seems to be for their own titles. Third-party and virtual console is unaffected for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't get that. That seems really weird. But they don't seem to be handing out bans for it. It just seems like, oh, request denied or something. But yeah, there's ways around it. Namely because the ways around it have been around longer than the method they just banned.
Right, exactly.
So, that's a bit weird. But not only that has, that's been happening. The ROM sites have been hackening. Hackening. God, it's really early. Happening. And then even the title keys sites have been going down as well. No one knows if that's been C&D stuff or just like they're just generally moving to try to avoid the Nintendo ninjas, as people have been. Man, people need to stop adding like really cute terms to kind of scary business stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's cute to be like, the Nintendo Ninjas, but it's also like, yeah, serious legal problems. Hell yeah, dude, that's cute. Don't do that. That's weird. But, they've just been trying to crack down in general, and, I mean, on one hand, Nintendo's security on all of their consoles have always been really bad.
Yeah.
Like, I think the only console that's not actually easy to pirate for outside of the Switch is, like, the GameCube.
I can agree with what you're saying because Nintendo has always messed up in a small way with security on their consoles. With the Wii, you had the Trudger bug, which allowed you to install any Wii digital title onto normal consoles. The 3DS had ARM9 loader hacks. The DS, you could actually put custom firmware on it with FlashMe.
I mean, from what I understand, Nintendo has always put their system keys in plain text on the system's flash storage itself. So trying to actually get into the thing that allows you to install and access certain items has just been in plain sight, which is not great.
No.
One of the methods to not updating your Wii U is that there's literally a folder called update, and you can just delete it, and the OS will not try to create another update. It'll just go, and just never update the OS ever again or try. That's really weird. No, nothing else on the planet does that.
You would think it would recreate the folder, but no, it doesn't.
Yeah.
I do want to go back to the Switch real quick because you said that Nintendo might have messed up with that console, and they did, but they didn't. With the RCM mode and stuff being modded and such, it was more on NVIDIA, really, that caused it, because it was a hardware flaw that was in other devices other than the Nintendo Switch.
Well, yeah, because it seems very obvious by now that NVIDIA gave Nintendo a very stock, bog-standard Tegra X1 and didn't change anything.
Yeah, basically, because of this, it seems like Nintendo is trying to do a 1-2 punch, where they're beefing up their security on the 3DS and Switch, and they're taking down on ROM sites so that way people don't have both options to download from their servers or other people's servers.
Well, it's kind of a weird ride, because we should probably mention this before someone else in the comments does, and that is that technically the big sites, the really big ROM sites that have been going down recently, like Emu Paradise, I've always called it Emu Paradise, I don't know why, and ISO Zone, Nintendo has not actually officially cease and desisted those sites. In fact, I believe Nintendo cease and desisted Emu Paradise a long time ago just to get their own games off of the site. And that's what Emu Paradise did. You couldn't get like Mario Sunshine off of Emu Paradise or anything like that at all for the longest time.
Right. It's just a lot of people speculate that Nintendo is the one doing this. Again, because, well, reasons.
They went after a bunch of smaller sites recently.
Yes. So it could either be that the big sites are conceding because they don't want to end up like the small sites, or, like, my opinion, legal action happened. Because if you look at all their statements, they're kind of PR wishy-washy. So I think there's way more going on behind the scenes than they're saying.
Well, the reason why you wanted to do this discussion is also because there's something a little interesting happening within a month, and that's Nintendo's online service coming up, along with their, what are they calling it?
They're actually
like the Nintendo Entertainment System Online fun bit. Like what's the official name for it? It's really bland.
It is a very bland name. Like, that's, to tell you the truth, that's why I had a hard time coming up with a name for this discussion, because there's no like official like classics branding. I think they're branded as, let me see, Nintendo Entertainment System, Nintendo Switch Online. Like, that's it.
Yeah, that's that's not great.
No, it's not.
That's a very bad name.
It is. And if you say Nintendo Classics, you might get it mixed up with the NES Mini and the SNES Mini.
With the NES Mini, yeah. I mean, listen, the thing about the Switch, because I know the words that everyone wants me to hear, is why is there no virtual console on the Switch? I can tell you right now that I didn't expect there to be one. To be honest, the virtual console is a magical thing, but only on one console.
Yes.
And that's the Wii. The original Wii's virtual console is absolutely fantastic, rest in peace. But the reason being is because it was something that was completely unparalleled at the time. You're talking about during a time, really no companies, I think outside of like Sega, were keen on re-releasing games. You kind of saw some old arcade games get re-released on Xbox Live Arcade and PSN, but you really didn't see like back catalogs of NES and SNES and N64 games or Genesis games coming to, like, you know, modern consoles.
Right, and plus too, it was one of the pivotal points during the Wii's launch. They advertised the virtual console straight from the beginning. Like, they said the Wii is meant to go from NES to N64, possibly with third parties coming in later. And that's what happened. The 3DS and Wii U, I think the 3DS might have got a little of that marketing prior, but I think the Wii U, that wasn't even the focal point. Like, they didn't announce Virtual Console until, like, early 2013.
With the 3DS and the Wii U, it's weird because the 3DS didn't get Virtual Console until the Ambassador program.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, that was just GBA games, and I liked it. Was it just GBA games? Did they also give out some NES games?
10 NES games and 10 GBA games.
The GBA games they're pretty alright.
Yeah, because they're actually running on real hardware, which Nintendo apparently sort of didn't like, so that's why they didn't go with GBA for some reason.
Yeah. Well, because you can't do sleep mode or save states, which, to be honest, I agree that actually kind of sucks.
Yeah.
But even then, like, the output of Virtual Console, it's better on the 3DS. There's, like, a lot of really weird stuff on the 3DS Virtual Console. I think that's the biggest problem with the Virtual Console that I always had, is that it's not, like, solidified. Like, the Wii, the Wii U, and the 3DS almost have entirely different lineups of games. Because, like, the Wii Virtual Console has, like, huge amount of games on them, but like only the 3DS has, like, what's that game called, like Summer 92, like the bullet hell for the NES. And then like the Wii U is the only one with Earthbound and the NES Earthbound. that was unreleased.
Yeah.
Which
that
is weird.
It seems like Nintendo completely just like rolled dice to see what games they would release on both platforms. It was very unorganized. Like, you could tell they didn't know what to do with the Virtual Console on Wii U and 3DS. And frankly, I think because of that, Nintendo isn't even bothering with trying that for the Switch. I mean, you can even see, like, they're not even trying to implement, like, additional features for the Switch. Like, everything is still bland from when it released a year ago. Like, the UI, I'll admit, the UI is very snappy, but it doesn't have that aesthetic feel to it that it's, like, unique. It just feels like a generic UI they slapped on last minute. There's no structure to it that makes it really stand out, and because of that, it makes me think that Nintendo is waiting, like, until later to implement every single thing. And
I wouldn't be surprised if it came with the online update. That's what I've been thinking for like a while
possibly
now.
But the online is coming so close and they haven't really revealed anything. I mean, we'll probably see a direct here soon, but you know.
Oh, I'm totally expecting a direct.
But
either a mini direct soon or like just a full-blown direct with like a good 5 minutes to Nintendo Online and like a OS update, because I think that just makes the most sense. That's at least what I always believed. There's probably a quote somewhere, or I'm just assuming there is, that a lot of Switch features, I think they said, were going to be temporary because it'll all come together for the online. Like, friend codes, I think, is supposed to be a temporary thing.
Right. And the thing is, you know, I'm one of those people that are still kind of pessimistic about the online service coming out, especially because we haven't heard a lot about it. I mean, yeah, cloud saves are great. Yes, NES games, woo, cool. I feel like there isn't a lot of heavy hitters that makes me kind of want to subscribe to it, you know what I mean? Like, there doesn't seem to be a lot more quality of life improvements that are, you know, not already available.
Maybe they will. I mean, Nintendo has like a weird knack for not announcing things until like 2 months before they're supposed to happen.
Yeah, they were
like, it's weird how 2 of like the 5 2018 Switch games were actually released in 2018 and were announced within the year, and the ones that are not coming out this year that were announced for this year were announced last year.
Yeah, it's
like that's
crazy.
That's really weird.
That is weird. And what's also weird is that Nintendo sometimes like to shoot themselves in the foot.
I think they're being really dumb and slow with their new service, because I think it's also really safe to assume that after the NES games, we're going to start getting SNES and 64.
I think it's good to assume natural progression. I mean, yeah, there probably is going to be more, I'll imagine, but I think the reason why people are very hesitant about it, me kind of included, it's because, again, this is...
They haven't said anything.
Right, this is Nintendo. We don't know...
And they're starting out very small.
Yeah, like, we got 20 NES games, which doesn't sound too bad in the grand scheme of things, but they're already ones we paid for in the past.
Well, that's the thing. See, that's the reason why, and here comes the hot take I was mentioning before we started recording. I didn't expect a Virtual Console to come to Switch, and honestly, I much prefer what they're doing now. I know that's not a shared opinion, but hear me out. As someone who owned a Wii, as someone who owns a 3DS, as someone who owns a Wii U, I don't want the Virtual Console again, if only because I don't want to pay for Super Mario Brothers again. I love these games, and I'll totally do it again. I will be first in line to buy Punch-Out on every single console Nintendo puts it out. Like, I will do it. But here's the thing. If the alternative to having to pay $5 for Punch-Out again, there is no way they're gonna have Wii U and Wii purchases transfer over to the Switch.
No.
The infrastructures are so different, it wasn't going to happen. The alternative is you pay $20 a year and you get a big bulk of games plus online play, which might be the reason why they're taking so long to do all this stuff, because I don't know if anyone here has tried NetPlay on an emulator, but it's like the worst thing ever. I mean, especially with much heavier titles, your N64, your GameCube, and your Wii, like NetPlay is just, it's just a nightmare. I think what they're doing now is better, but A, that doesn't excuse the ROM site stuff, and B, they need to pump these things out quick. They can't just be like, here's 20 games and that's it, you know?
Here's my whole perspective on the issue is that I think the demographic for the NES games are, yes, completely different from the core gamer. The core gamer is most likely going to know about these ROM sites, and they're going to go for them for convenience because they don't want to either, pay for something they've already paid for, or they want to get a certain version of a game that is not on the service, right? So I can understand Nintendo's thinking. It's kind of a similar situation to how the NES Classic and the SNES Classic work. They're for casual gamers. They're people like grandfathers who remember playing those games and stuff like that.
Grandfathers? Jesus, you're gonna make them feel real old. They're just in their 30s. They're not. They didn't go to war.
Hey, I'm not talking about. Hey, I'm not talking about the kids who are growing up playing them now. I'm talking about the grandfathers who played with those kids who are growing up with them now. Hey, I'm trying to.
Okay, all right. Okay.
I ain't insulting. I'm not trying to insult people. Like, that's not my intentions here.
I'm just goofing on you.
I know that. I'm just pointing that out. But I'm basically saying that, yes, these are two completely different demographics. However, there's always going to have to be that balance of satisfying the casual gamer taste and the core gamer taste. And basically, if you piss off the core gamer, they what we call the vocal minority, and they will be vocal. If you piss them off, you piss them off.
I mean, here's really the slippery slope of all this. Here's the real meat and potatoes. Here's the real thing. This is the part of the discussion. You can timestamp this. This is where I make the point that everyone wants to hear. Is are you ready? Here we go. The reason why I don't think a virtual console on the Switch would have been great is because third-party companies weren't gonna bother putting their games on it because. That's the reason why I made that point about how the Wii's Virtual Console was unparalleled for its time. Nowadays, a Switch Virtual Console would be paralleled because I don't think you'd be seeing Capcom games on there or Sega games because they have their own methods of re-releasing games.
Yeah, I can understand that point. Third-party companies aren't going to cooperate that much anymore.
Because they're just going to want to re-release, because it's like, oh, you want to play Mega Man on your Switch? You just buy the Legacy Collection. But at the same time, this is the problem. Here's where things get really iffy, especially with the ROM sites. There's no reason for Nintendo to go after these ROM sites because their own games are always going to be fine. Your Super Mario Bros. 3 and World and 64 and Punch-Out, those are always going to be fine. Even if Nintendo takes forever, they will always bring those games to newer consoles. Like, it's just a matter of fact. I know, as I said before, we're sort of assuming this, but I really sincerely believe that next year they will do SNES games and we can play Earthbound on the Switch, and that $200 cartridge will have no meaning to me anymore because now I can play it both on my TV and the console. But that's beside the point. Nintendo's own games are totally fine. The reason why them taking down these ROM sites is terrible is because of everything else.
Yes.
Literally everything else that has ever been made. The majority of old video games are pretty much abandonware. Like, they're companies that made these games either don't exist or they're still around and they just couldn't care less. Friday the 13th for the NES, developed by Atlas and published by LGN, which is not a great game, but that's never going to see the light of day again because who's going to release it? Why are they going to release it? And how much? And where?
Right. If Nintendo is the one behind this, and again, I thoroughly believe that, they are affecting our efforts to kind of collect old titles that, like you said, have rights issues or companies are unwilling to re-release, and it's causing like a hole in the video game preservation efforts.
I mean, it's kind of weird. I think it is kind of crappy that Nintendo's doing all this stuff now, especially because in a lot of ways it's really weird. It's weird that they're cracking down on 3DS piracy right as the console is on its deathbed. I'm not Jason Schreier. I'm not saying the 3DS is like dumb and all of its games should come to the Switch, but let's be honest, that thing is a year away from not having games anymore. The Switch Online is going to go live in a month with these 20 NES games, so it makes taking down the ROM sites seem a bit more targeted for like a reason. Though I think the ROM sites and the Switch Online launching might actually just be like two completely separate things.
Oh, they could be. As I said earlier, it could also be just a 1-2 punch with their security.
Yeah.
Trying to prevent people from downloading stuff.
That's most likely what it is. It's probably just them trying to like crack down on piracy in general. But I'm glad that it has kind of started this debate because it's totally true. It's totally true that if they are taking down ROM sites, that really sucks. I know there's going to be some people in the comments that are like, but piracy's bad. But it's like, as I said earlier, most old games are abandonware. Like, only some ever really see re-releases. I love stuff like Namco Museum and like the Street Fighter collection, but those are not suitable replacements at all, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
there's nothing like the original thing.
it doesn't matter. You should always be able to have options.
Yes.
And honestly, Nintendo doesn't really lose anything, especially with the way they're doing it now. I don't see them losing anything from still letting people download ROMs of like Super Mario Bros. 3, because now you're not even paying for Super Mario Bros. 3. It comes with a flat fee that comes with a bunch of other stuff, which is why I think the new service is so much better. I think I said this earlier, but you're not paying for individual ROMs, you're paying for an entire back catalog, which I think most people are okily-dokily with.
Yeah, we'll have to see how Nintendo structures the service going forward. I'm really hoping there's a direct here soon that kind of outlines everything with the online service.
They still have to announce the rest of the games.
Yes, they do. They do, in fact.
They only announced, what, 8 of them? Golf's not even on there, and that was the one game we were sure was going to be on there.
Yeah, well, it technically was on the Switch for a while until they removed it in 4.0, I think. So, but yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see what they do going forward. I mean, if you believe the rumor mill, before even the Switch launched, apparently Nerd was working on implementing GameCube emulation support. So
apparently this is a weird thing. Hey, remember when the Switch was supposed to have analog triggers, and every leaker on the planet said it was going to have analog triggers, and then it didn't? Apparently that ties into that. Apparently that was the plan, and it was supposed to have analog triggers support GameCube support, but now that's not a thing, so they removed it, which I think, if true, that sucks. I just would have preferred analog triggers on the Switch anyway.
yeah, a lot of developers could utilize that.
Not a big fan of how stiff the trigger buttons on the Switch are sometimes, but the Pro Controller fixes that.
Yeah, well, anyways, we'll have to see what happens with everything going forward. Hopefully, the video game preservation efforts aren't hindered this much again.
I don't know if I said this earlier, or I'm just thinking about when I said this before we started recording, but piracy finds a way, for better or for worse. And, I mean, the thing that, like, really sucks about these ROM sites taken down is that, as I kind of said, like, all your major systems, your NES, your SNES, your Genesis, your N64, PS1, those are always going to be fine. I think the real slippery slope is just, you know, your PC Engine, your Turbo Duo, your ColecoVision, your Intellivision, Ataris, especially your Jaguar, 3DO. That stuff is not coming back, and it really sucks that, I mean, if it really is Nintendo taking these things down, and not just these sites being really paranoid, because from what I understand, I think ISO Zone went down, but that was more of a front, because I believe they already have a new website with everything back up on it. But at the same time, it's like, if it really is Nintendo doing it, it is really super selfish. It's just kind of hurting the gaming community as a whole.
I mean, obviously, of course, it could be not Nintendo doing this, and we could have wasted our time talking about how Nintendo's bad for doing this, but
yeah.
But, you know, if it is not Nintendo, then, well, you guys are all scot-free.
But you gotta make that NES Online thing. You gotta add some games. You gotta add Super Nintendo. You gotta add N64. You gotta punch Sega and get Genesis on there. You gotta punch whoever owns Hudson now. It's Konami, right? You gotta punch Konami and get them to put TurboGrafx 16 games on it. You gotta purple Nurple Atari and get their whole back catalog on there. Screw the VCS. No one's gonna buy the Atari box.
Hey, you gotta get at least the 5200 on there, so that way you can play those games with a good control. Just saying.
Man, I know the 5200's like a big meme, but oh man, the games on there are really good. They're really good ports. Have you ever played like the 5200 version of Mario Brothers? It runs like 60 FPS. It's great.
Wow, I've seen the ports of Miss Pac-Man, and they didn't look too bad.
Yeah, all the Atari 8-bit stuff is like pretty alright, pretty okay sign emoji.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically, just play old video games. I think that's really the best I can say. Well, that's always been my thing, is just like, you should go play old video games, because they're a real hoot and a holler. And it really sucks that it's going to be harder to do.
It is.
With old game prices going up, and, you know, ROM sites going down, and Sweet Home never being localized, and,
Right, I mean, tell you the truth, Mother 3 is one of those titles that are being affected by this, if you think about it, because of Nintendo's unwillingness to localize it. You know, people are gonna have to go otherwise, and kind of fortunate they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah, because that was like the only reason why I never cared about a Mother 3 localization, is because we technically already have one.
Right.
That's perfectly fine and perfectly dandy, and
I'm pretty sure if Nintendo were to do an official translation, the Mother 3 community would be debating back and forth which one is the real translation, you know?
People do that with AM2R and Samus Returns, you know? Like, which, by the way, it's Samus Returns. Samus Returns is better. If you're gonna remake a game, you might as well make it, like, cool and new and not just, like, a direct remake.
Is Samus Returns on the Vita? I don't think so, unlike AM2R.
Hey, do you own a Vita? I didn't think so.
I thought Vita meant life, man. Come on.
Not with those games, it doesn't.
No.
Oh, man. Oh, man. Whenever you get to,
I think this is good.
I'm sorry to whoever really likes the Vita, but cracking jokes at its expense will never get old.
I think this is the perfect way to end it, so...
Hell yeah,
Hell
dude.
yeah. So, anyways, Colin, is there anything you want to plug?
If you like hearing my voice, I stream on the regular, weekly? On our channel, Source Gaming, the YouTube one. We just did a Dragon Ball FighterZ open beta. I played Geist. I hate that game. Just keep a lookout for those live streams, because they're a hoot and a holler.
Anyways, we want to thank you guys for watching. Be sure to follow us on our social media pages, including our Facebook and Twitter accounts. Be sure to also support us on Patreon. We would like to thank our super Patreon, the Duke of Dorks. His channel will be linked in the description below. We'll also have our own social media links in the channel below.
Always remember to return to the source.
And bye.
I think that's like kind of facetious. I can't talk because it's really early in the morning. Oh my god, I'm sorry. You're gonna have to cut this part out. But Uppers just got announced for PS4 and PC, and that game is really good, and it's finally being localized, and it's not gonna be on the Vita anymore, and it's gonna be in English.
Okay.
That's really good.
Hey.
Ah!
We'll also have our own social media links in the channel below, so that way if you want to see our dank memes, you can go to our Twitter accounts, especially
Why? Our dank memes? Why?
I don't know. I'll probably edit this out. I don't know, man. Anyways, we hope you guys enjoyed this video.
If you like, wait, let me plug my goddamn.
Okay, go ahead.